Alexander sighed deeply as he stepped out of the taxi, his heavy suitcase dragging on the cobblestones leading to his childhood home. The fresh air of the small countryside town filled his lungs, so different from the suffocating atmosphere of the apartment in the metropolis where he had spent the last few years. His tired eyes scanned the familiar facade, noticing the vines that now covered much of the exposed brick walls. At 45, Alexander was a well-known name in the literary world. His introspective and complex novels had captivated critics and the public alike, earning him awards and a comfortable financial life. However, success had brought with it a self-imposed isolation that had gradually dried up the source of his creativity. For months he faced a creative block that seemed insurmountable. Words, once so fluid, now slipped away like water through fingers. It was in this moment of despair that he decided to return to his hometown, a place he had avoided for years, laden with memories and conflicting feelings. Alexander took a deep breath, gathering the courage to knock on the door. Before he could do so, it opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with a gentle smile and welcoming eyes. "Hello, you must be Alexander," she said, her voice soft and welcoming. "Your mother is waiting for you in the living room. Please, come in." Confused, Alexander frowned. "Sorry, but who are you?" Forgive the lack of introduction. I'm Sophie, the new housekeeper. Your mother hired me a few weeks ago to help with the house and with herself." Alexander nodded, still surprised, and entered the house. The interior was exactly as he remembered, with the same old furniture and the characteristic smell of old books and lavender. His mother, Evelyn, was sitting in her favourite armchair, an open book on her lap. "Alexander, my son," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. "How good it is that you finally decided to visit us." He approached, kissing his mother's forehead. "Hello, Mother. How are you?" I am much better now that Sophie is here to help me," Evelyn replied, casting a loving glance at the maid who was watching them from the door. "She has been a blessing." Alexander looked at Sophie again, feeling a vague familiarity. Her brown eyes and dark hair tied in a simple bun stirred a distant memory. "Do we know each other?" he asked, unable to contain his curiosity. Sophie blushed slightly. "Yes, actually. We studied together in high school. I always admired your writing, even back then." The realization struck Alexander like lightning. Sophie Carter, the shy girl who always had a book in her hands, sitting at the back of the classroom. He remembered noticing her furtive glances but had never had the courage to approach her. "Sophie Carter," he said, an involuntary smile appearing on his lips. "Of course, now I remember." Evelyn interrupted the moment. "Sophie has been wonderful, Alexander. She not only takes care of the house but also keeps me company. Her knowledge of literature is impressive." Alexander nodded, still processing the unexpected reunion. "Well, I'm glad you found someone so capable," he said, his voice betraying a mix of surprise and curiosity. In the days that followed, Alexander found himself observing Sophie with growing interest. Her hands, calloused from work, moved gracefully and efficiently around the house, bringing order and comfort. More than that, he noticed how she treated his mother with genuine affection, always patient and attentive to her needs. One afternoon, while working in his old room turned into an improvised office, Alexander heard a soft knock on the door. Sophie entered, carrying a tray with tea and cookies. "I thought you might need a snack," she said, placing the tray on the table. Alexander thanked her, noticing the curious glance Sophie cast at the papers scattered on the desk. "Something new?" she asked shyly. He sighed, running his hand through his grey hair. "Attempts, actually. I can't move beyond the first few pages for months now." Sophie bit her lip, as if gathering courage. "You know, I've always thought your stories had a unique quality. The way you capture the essence of human emotions. It's truly special." Alexander looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "Thank you, Sophie. That means a lot." She smiled, a gentle blush colouring her cheeks. "Well, I'll leave you to work. If you need anything, just call." After she left, Alexander became thoughtful. It was the first time in a long while that someone spoke about his writing with such genuine enthusiasm. He realised that he had distanced himself not only from his audience, but also from the very reason he had started writing. Days turned into weeks, and Alexander found himself increasingly comfortable in Sophie's presence. Their conversations about books and writing became a highlight of his days. He began to notice small details: the way she tilted her head when she was focused, the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about a story she loved. One night, while everyone was asleep, Alexander went down to the kitchen for a glass of water. To his surprise, he found Sophie sitting at the table, absorbed in reading a manuscript. "What are you reading?" he asked, making her jump with surprise. "Alexander, I'm sorry, I found this while cleaning the attic," she stammered, showing a bundle of yellowed papers. "It's one of your old, unpublished manuscripts. I know I shouldn't have, but—" He approached, recognizing the pages of a story he had abandoned years ago. "Don't worry, Sophie. What did you think?" Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "It's incredible, Alexander. The way you portray the protagonist's inner conflict, his journey of self-discovery. It's fascinating. Why did you never finish it?" Alexander sat beside her, touched by her reaction. "Honestly, I lost confidence. I thought no one would be interested in such a personal story." Sophie placed her hand over his, a gesture of comfort that sent a wave of warmth through his body. "You are mistaken. It's precisely this emotional depth that makes your writing so powerful." At that moment, something changed within Alexander. Sophie's words, her genuine passion for literature, awakened something he thought he had lost. In the days that followed, he found himself writing with renewed vigour, inspired not only by his own experiences, but also by the stimulating conversations with Sophie. As he worked on his new manuscript, Alexander also began to reconnect with his mother. Evelyn shared stories of her youth, revealing facets of her personality that he had never known. Sophie, always present, acted as a bridge between mother and son, her presence softening old tensions and misunderstandings. One sunny afternoon, as they walked through the backyard garden, Evelyn held Alexander's arm, her touch more fragile than he remembered. "Alexander, there is something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He looked at her, noticing for the first time the deep lines of worry on her face. "What is it, Mom?" Evelyn took a deep breath. "I'm sick, son. The doctors, they haven't given me much time." Alexander's world seemed to collapse. "What? But why didn't you tell me before?" Tears glistened in his mother's eyes. "I didn't want to worry you, not when you finally came back home. And I wanted to make sure you wouldn't be alone when I was gone." The realization hit Alexander like a punch to the stomach. "Sophie, did you hire her for this?" Evelyn nodded. "Partially, yes. I knew you would get along well. She always talked about you, you know, even after all these years." Alexander remained silent, processing the information. The idea of losing his mother was devastating, but the revelation about Sophie added a layer of complexity to his already confused feelings. In the days that followed, the dynamic in the house changed. Alexander found himself torn between the desire to spend every moment with his mother and the need to process his emotions alone. Sophie, noticing his distress, offered silent support, always present when needed, but respecting his space. One night, unable to sleep, Alexander went down to the back porch. To his surprise, he found Sophie sitting on the steps, looking at the stars. "Can't sleep?" he asked, sitting next to her. She shook her head. "I was thinking about you, and your mother. How are you coping with all this?" Alexander sighed deeply. "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to run away like I've always done. Another part knows that I need to be here to face this." Sophie placed her hand on his, a gesture that had become familiar and comforting. "You are not alone, Alexander. I'm here if you need me." He looked at her, noticing the sincerity in her eyes. "Why do you care so much, Sophie, after all these years?" She smiled softly. "Because I've always seen something special in you, Alexander, not just in your writing, but in who you are. Your sensitivity, your way of seeing the world, that has never changed." At that moment, something broke inside Alexander. All the emotions he had repressed, the fear of losing his mother, the gratitude for Sophie's presence, the confusion about his own feelings, came to the surface. He cried for the first time in years, while Sophie held him, offering silent comfort. The following weeks were an emotional roller coaster. Alexander divided his time between caring for his mother, writing with renewed passion, and exploring his growing feelings for Sophie. The proximity of Evelyn's death brought an urgency to every moment, each conversation laden with meaning. One afternoon, while Alexander was reading to his mother in the garden, Evelyn held his hand, interrupting him. "Alexander," she said, her voice weak but determined, "I want you to promise me something." He leaned in, attentive. "Anything, Mother." "Promise me that you won't close yourself off again, that you will allow people into your life, into your heart." Alexander felt tears forming in his eyes. "I promise, Mother." Evelyn smiled, her eyes shifting to Sophie, who was a few meters away, arranging some flowers. "And don't let this one pass by, son. Love is too precious to be wasted." He followed his mother's gaze, feeling a warmth spread in his chest at the sight of Sophie. "I know, Mum, I know." That night, after putting his mother to bed, Alexander found Sophie in the kitchen. Without words, he pulled her into a hug, burying his face in her hair. "Thank you," he whispered, "for being here, for everything." Sophie pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes. "I'll always be here, Alexander, always." The kiss that followed was gentle, full of promise and mutual understanding. It was a new beginning, born from pain and impending loss, but also from hope and rediscovered love. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn's health deteriorated rapidly. Alexander and Sophie remained by her side, offering comfort and love until the end. When Evelyn finally departed, it was with a serene smile on her face, knowing her son would not be alone. The morning was difficult, but Alexander discovered a strength he didn't know he possessed. With Sophie by his side, he faced each day, finding solace not only in her presence but also in his writing. The manuscript he was working on became a tribute to his mother, an exploration of love, loss, and redemption. Months later, sitting in his office with the finished manuscript in hand, Alexander reflected on the journey that had brought him there. Sophie entered, bringing 2 cups of coffee. "Finished," he said, a mix of exhaustion and accomplishment in his voice. Sophie smiled, sitting down beside him. "Can I read it?" Alexander nodded, handing her the pages. As she read, he watched her reactions, the smiles, the held-back tears, the spark of admiration in her eyes. When she finished, Sophie looked at him, moved. "It's beautiful, Alexander. Your best work so far." He took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I wouldn't have made it without you, Sophie. You reminded me why I started writing in the first place." Sophie smiled, leaning in to kiss him softly. As the saying goes, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." We have become better together, Alexander. He nodded, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in years. Yes, we have. And this is just the beginning of our story. As the sun set outside, bathing the office in golden light, Alexander and Sophie remained embraced, grateful for the love they had found amidst the loss, and hopeful for the future they would build together. Alexander knew that no matter what came, he would no longer face it alone. With Sophie by his side and his mother's lessons in his heart, he was ready to write the next chapter of his life. one page at a time. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.